Hi everyone, Zoe here from Make It Crafty. Today I'm going to show you how I use the grey markers to add additional depth to an image. To help illustrate it further, what I've done is I've pre-coloured the garden picket fence, which is available from the Make It Crafty site, and rather than using multiple tones of the same colour, which I would normally do to add the lighting, I've decided just to use one tone of each colour so that it's a very flat image, and then show you how the grey markers can really add that additional depth. I'm going to be using the neutral grey markers. I'm using N2, N4, N5, N7 and N9, and I've decided that for today I'm going to have my light source coming from this direction, which means that all of the shading will be done on the right hand side of whatever object it is. So I'm going to be imagining that the sun's coming through and it's casting a shadow on the right. So I'm just going to make a start. I'm going to start with N2, and the idea is just to lay it down just quickly so that I can get an idea of where I'm going to be doing all my shading. And this dries very light, so it's really just for me to view as I colour and make sure that I'm going in the right place. So what I'm going to start with is just all around these leaves and onto the wood area. And I'm not too particular. You don't have to do any blending. You're just laying down the colour. So wherever you think that the shadow might be cast, just add some ink there. And if you happen to, because I do this very rough, if you happen to go over some of your coloured image in areas where you think you might not have been a shadow, people aren't going to really pick up on it. So don't be all too particular about it. Just get the ink down. And this is, I think now that I have an understanding, I've been playing with this method, it would have been a great way to actually start building my collection of Copic markers, because I could have just started off with a few colours that I really liked and then had the grey markers and use that to add the depth to the images. And yeah, I just think it's a good way to practice. And it helps you, because it's sort of more of an afterthought after you've coloured, it helps you sort of work out and learn about the lighting. Okay, as you can tell, I'm not really that careful. I mean, I'm trying not to go out the edges and stuff, but it's very quick. Okay, so I'm just going to come in now with N4 and go, now that I know where I'm putting my ink, let's come in a little bit darker. And we gradually build up these colours and it will get darker and darker. I'm going to come back to the flowers and leaves later, so I'm just trying to get it onto the wood at this point. But I like to gradually add the colour because I freak out really. If I started with the dark, I don't know, I haven't done it too often, probably because I'm always too scared that I'm going to destroy the image that I've just spent an hour colouring in. And when you start lighting, you can always stop. Okay, I'm just going to go now to N5. It's only a little bit darker than N4. Oh, by the way, I'm using the espresso paper, and the inks have actually, the coloured inks have dried before I start doing this. So I like to make sure that the paper is completely dried. And the espresso paper is really forgiving, and you can just seem to put layers and layers of ink down. Mind you, what you do need to remember is that there is always a limit. And as you can see, I'm not actually putting much ink down when I lay it down. It's just a little bit of a dab here and there. And as I go darker, I put down less and less. I don't extend as far. Okay, so I'm just going to go now to N7. And this is where it starts to really pop. And you might be freaking out at this point, thinking, my gosh, it's too dark, but no, just wait. Trust me on this. Okay. So at this point, I'm not actually blending anything, I'm just laying colour down. No blending at all. Okay. And then again, I'm going darker one more time. N9. And I'm only just doing this in some areas where I think it's going to be really dark. So it might just be like in the corner of the leaves. Down on this side probably more because we've got our sun here, so it's going to be darker over here. In these little cracks. Okay. Now we come back in, and this is where we do some blending. Come back in with N4. And this is where I just sort of blot it, and I'm blotting it out. It'll be very rough. Yes, it's going to look dark, but it's okay. It'll dry lighter. Don't worry about that. Try not to go out of the lines, I guess. You can see it's starting to take shape now. Remembering that I started with just one tone of each colour, and I'm using the greys to add my depth. Okay, so that's pretty much enough for the fence. I'll probably go over it with the N2 at the very end, but you can still see that the flowers are flat. So we need to add some greys to those to give them some dimension. I'm just going to actually start with N4, and remembering that our light source is here, these flowers here, they're going to be darker on this side and here, and then inside here. So I'm just going to, okay, and the same with these. If our light source is coming from here, underside here would be grey, all in here. And a little bit on this side as well. Obviously the leaves are going to cast a shadow into each other. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. It's just good to practice. The more you do it, the more it'll come to you. I'm just going to do some of these leaves down here. And a little bit of cast a shadow. Okay. Next I want to use it N7 and just make some of these areas a little bit darker, just on the edges, just to give it a bit more definition, a bit more depth. Very sparingly, you can see I'm only doing it a little bit, just enough to make it pop a little bit more. Usually if you're just using one colour, it just doesn't quite achieve the result. So it's just very quick, and I'm going to do all inside these little. I might actually just grab my N5 just to do a little bit more on the edges. Okay, so here's the trick. When you look at this, you're going to be going, now I've just lost all of my colour and it looks great. But the wonderful thing about Copic markers is that they blend with each other. So I come back with the original colour that I used and I go over the top. And you only go over the top of the grey because you'll find that by leaving what you'd coloured previously, not going over it, it's going to look lighter, so that gives you your light effect. It makes it look light. Well, makes it look like that's where the light is shining. So that was the pink flowers, and now the blue ones. Okay, and just notice I'm going to add a little more depth here. So at the end, I'll often just do some, because I've smudged it all out, I'll come back and add a darker one just to add a bit more of a sharper shadow. That's the word I was looking for. And I don't do it everywhere, just in some real areas I want to really pop, like that. And so there you have it. Let's see if I can, and there it is there. So just by adding some greys to one-tone colours, you can now have all that depth. I hope that you've picked up some tips today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching. See you.